how that affects schools and school districts, you know, and being funded by local tax base, you know, is a whole nother dynamic, and being able to provide resources for the people who are the haves in those communities and the have-nots and those other communities, you know. So just, you know, you're kind of chasing your tail almost in many respects for every issue on this, and you're dealing with co-ops and, you know, that turnover of providers, and, you know, some co-ops being stronger than others and being able to provide those services, and then the consistency and leadership in some of our most demanding school districts, or the constant turnover there affects an ability to kind of create those sustainable practices. So it's like this advocacy, that understanding, that institutional knowledge is tremendously important to your communities on that level, you know, letting them know what they committed to, how they envision sustaining that throughout time. You know, you become that continuity between changes in leadership, you know, at all different levels, and that's not even to mention school boards, you know, and their importance in these conversations to prioritize those.
Just another note, how does your department tie in with the Indian Health Services?
Yeah.
Is there funding that's from your department to Indian Health Services? Because going back, when I didn't know during my 9 months of pregnancy that my son was Downs until he was born, and it was like my whole world changed. But the situation that I was in, there was no support at the time of me knowing that, you know,
Yeah.
hey, Dad, our son's Downs. What is that? You know, what's this disability? So they had to fly him here into Albuquerque, but there was no one there, you know, and I'm just wondering if your department has some program in the prenatal department with any Indian Health Service, if there's funds available for a special manager or someone that's there that will help parents once they become aware that their child has a disability, and be a service to them when they become aware of, you know, their child is going to need help.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen with us back in the Shiprock IHS. They just took our baby, and I had no knowledge of where they took him because I was recuperating.
There's no advocate.
Nothing, nobody came in. I tried asking where my son was. The doctor came in and just told me that your son is having some respiratory problems. We need to send him out. And I got out of the hospital within 4 hours after delivery, and I came down after him. And I just wish there was someone there to say, hey, your son is you're going to a medical facility. You know, we feel, you know, the doctor did his best, but he couldn't do a lot. He just explained to us what the possibilities were and that he was sorry. And thereafter, everyone just looked at us like, you know, we were freaks, you know, we had a freak child or something, you know. That's the impression I had. And all the mothers in the delivery room were looking at me like, you know, we have our baby and you don't. And I thought, wow. So I got out of there against the doctor's orders. I said, it's my life, my health. I'm going after my child. He says, I'll discharge you, but I don't want you going to Albuquerque. What did I do? I came down after my child to find out what was wrong with them. There is a big gap too. Indian Health Service should be prepared with these families, especially young parents, to tell them that this is what's happening. Here are some resources. If I was given resources, I would have done something, but that didn't happen. This was back in 1990 when my son was born. I'm hoping from 1990 to 2014, there has been some changes in Indian Health Services for that, because after that, some of the case managers that were more familiar with the general services would call me at home and says, Anita, are you available to come to the hospital to talk to a mom? We just had another Downs child. Can you come and talk to her? Can we give her your phone number? And I was an independent advocate there, you know, and I said, sure, why not? Because I know what she's feeling. I know what she's going through. So somewhere, I guess my hope is the Indian Health Service kind of gets a little kick in the butt, excuse me, but to say, hey, Indian children are being born special needs, regardless what the disability is. Parents need to know.
Care
Don't be
starts
like
there.
us and wait for something to come when some of us never get it right then and there.
Yeah.
And so,
And IDA funds start at the moment of zero.
mhm.
Yeah.
And there is that
Yeah.
fund.
And the IDA needs to
Yeah.
come into Indian
Yeah.
Health and say,
And-
hey,
Well, let me get to your question, and that siloing still exists, you
Mhm.
know, and, you know, in my keynote remarks, you know, I frame this as both looking at it in terms of partners as well as, you know, challenges to the things that they're trying to address themselves, you know, and so we take it on both veins and say, you know, how can we address these issues? And one of the things that we know is happening is just that disconnection from the BIE. You know, the IHS is trying to think about health and wellness, and they have programs that affect, you know, certainly schools and institutions. BIE, same thing. Department of Education, same thing. USDA, labor. Nobody is trying to coordinate those services in any coherent fashion. And so that's kind of the semblance of the initiative. And so we essentially beg, steal, borrow, plead, you know, saying, how are we in alignment? Are we misaligned? And what is it going to take for us to get to that point so that we can provide that continuity, coordination of services, and to get at that level of care so that from the moment that happens, and that they're addressed in the appropriate way from the professionals that they need to be, and you know, they have those early intervention programs that are made available to them, and kind of helping them through that. They have those support groups in place, and those are sustained, you know, throughout that. But you're dealing with some professional issues as well. I mean, professional meaning the systemic concerns around just simple bedside manner of our you know, healthcare providers, and that impacting everything from how that's consistent in the field, you know, whether it's tribal healthcare centers or looking at rural impacts of that, you know, and so those dynamics are just kind of compounded the further you get from that capacity to have that sustainability, much less just the presence of it. So I know how are we doing for time?
Is it at noon we go? Still got 45 minutes?
Okay, good. Just want to check.
I have one. I don't know if I would refer this to him or in front of a, like, I think at the end of the whole thing by tomorrow, they have a board of people up there, but I'm gonna throw it out. We have a form in place for faith, and it has to do with vaccinations. We don't have her immunized anymore. We haven't had for 5 or 6 years from the time we found out she was autistic. We strongly believe as Navajos that vaccinations did this to her, and I didn't have my son vaccinated for that long period of time too until last year. I got him fully immunized, but I will not have her vaccinated anymore.
Mhm.
And I think people are calling us now on our phone like a vaccination survey, and I feel like they're either trying to do away with it because so many people have not vaccinated. I don't know what their reasons are, but I feel like there's should be a form other than what we have now, because what our form says, it's a religious thing that we don't want our daughter to be vaccinated. That's not our reason. It's not a religious thing. It's just that I believe that the vaccinations were bad at the time. Maybe there still are, I don't know, but what I had one article that I kept for a long time where they mixed the vaccinations, and I tried to understand this, and all of a sudden it was gone again. So my thing is, we need to make a form for people like me, how I feel, to give the opportunity to other people if they don't want to have their child vaccinated, or they do.
Yeah. Thank you for raising that.
name is Bernard Raton. This is my wife, Rachel. We're from Santa Ana, Pueblo, here in New Mexico. And we were fortunate enough to have twins that we adopted from birth. We didn't know at the time that they had disabilities when we first got them. And incidentally, my first cousin was in her state of mind where she knew that she couldn't take care of the kids. So we stepped up as a family and took them in. So they're our children now. And we didn't know exactly what was wrong with them in the beginning, especially our son. He used to come up to us and feel us and look very closely at the TV. And you have to understand that there's two parts of Santa Ana. One that we call fully civilized, I guess. And then we live at the other pueblo, which is the traditional village. We have no full electricity there. We have a little bit of solar power, and then I run off the generator from my electricity. We do have indoor plumbing, which the tribe through IHS finally approved. Yay! But we're kind of, well, we are the only family at that traditional village that we live at right now. So we're kind of disengaged with the rest of the pueblo. Well, anyways, when we got into the school district in Bernalillo, we had no concept of what to do, how to get services for our twins at that time. We went through NAPR at that time and a couple of others, and we knew nothing of IEPs. So what we did was I worked with the Head Start program at one time, and there was a lady that no longer worked there, and I no longer worked there. And we were at our wits' ends because we didn't know what we were supposed to do. Well, we went in for parent-teacher conferences, or IEPs. We didn't even know what IEP really stood for. We just got told, sign here, initial here, and goodbye, and have a good day. That's exactly what happened. Until we contacted Dee Modi, who in turn set us up with Ronalda, is when our eyes really opened up. And we've been advocating for our twins for a very long time now. They're 14 years old now. And it was just amazing because when we started talking to the teachers, it ended up 30 minutes on an IEP. Well, now we can take up to 8 hours of their time and the next day at times. We've gone through mediation because of our kids, state mediation, because of the services, accommodations, everything that was not being followed for our children. Presently, we're still fighting, even to this day, for accommodations for our children. And the thing about it is that we have social services at our pueblo. And I was very happy to see some of my tribal members finally being at some of these conferences. As a matter of fact, there's 2 there. And there's a couple more that are still out there. And we've tried to work with the Department of Education through our pueblo. One is actually a liaison for our school, but we're not getting nowhere. And like a couple of people have said, we're wondering why. And we have an open door policy with our superintendent. He knows us personally, you know, now. We've asked about funding because what's happening at our school is our kids are getting charged per paper to make copies of their schoolwork. You know, 10 cents isn't much, but it becomes a lot. you know? And it's something that we for a long time had asked, can we see the budget? Can we see the budget? Can we see the budget? Well, finally, they've invited us a couple of times for their financial meetings, which is a big breakthrough, but we can't get the specific amount of money that's going to the special education departments. There's a block there for whatever reason. We can't understand that. And I think
Also tell them about your other issue you've
Yeah.
been having. Okay.
I'm Rachel. We have been on this journey, like my husband said, for about 3 years now, fighting with the school district. My question now is, these teachers, these professionals we call, are supposed to have training when they come into the school system, into the public schools. And then when you sit at their IEP meetings, you find out they don't have knowledge of how to conduct an IEP. They don't know how to start inclusion classes for our children. They can't even give you an answer as to how they're going to be following the Common Core studies for our special needs children. So my question is, why can't our state or the federal give them enough money so that they can start educating our educators? Because every time we go to those IEPs, all we ever get from them is, I didn't know that, I didn't have training on that, I have no idea about the laws for special education. If we're going to be doing inclusions in our classes, then these teachers, these staff need to be trained. And if they're not trained, why are they in the position that they are trying to teach our children? Our children have the same equal rights as any other normal child. And I don't see that happening. I don't know about the other schools here. I don't know about the other public schools, but I am with the Bernalillo Public School, and I refuse to transfer our twins into a different school district just so they can have the services rendered to them.
in fact, that was put out to us. Well, why don't you go ahead and transfer them to Rio Rancho, where they have services available? Why not keep them there and get those services available that they deserve?
They really need to start policing these staff, these administrators, as to where that budget is being flowed to. I heard rumors, I don't know if it's a fact, but I heard rumors that part of our budget from the special education department went into the athletic department. So, you have to start to ask these questions as a parent. Like my husband said, we had no idea what we were getting into. And the more we get into debt with it, the more it becomes really scary. No wonder our school systems are failing our children, because these professionals are not being kept to their standards. They want our children to pass those standards, but yet they are not kept to the standards.
And what I've been asking about, because several years ago we had a tribal leader, a governor, that was very much qualified as an educator, which he was at one time. He kind of pushed that education for our kids at that time. Now we have tribal leaders are more political because of the federal government and their grants and their funds, that they're pushed away the kids and especially the educational departments of our children, And then we're fortunate as a tribe that have a casino. Well, some of those monies that the casino filters to the pueblo goes into the school districts. But where does it actually go? Because at one time, the football team had this brand new gate, I guess, to get into the field that was funded by our pueblo. Why not utilize that funding into the school actually for children? You know, that was just a kind of waste of money, and I've always said it to the tribal leaders, and especially now this year, I'm appointed officer myself within our Pueblo, and I've been stressing to our governors, what about the kids? What about the kids? Each and every time that I see them, they push me aside because there's more important things out there besides the kids. You know, and the tribes all get federal funding within the Rio Grande Pueblos that I know. But let's make sure that some of those fundings are for education, keep it in education. And there's no way, like my wife said, to police them. There has to be a way.
The other note too with impact aid funds, and I know you're aware of that those kids who are in special education that draw impact aid funds, that money should be going back into special ed. And I know based on Albuquerque School District, because I was on their advisory parent committee for special ed, APS received $4,000 through impact aid.
Yeah.
And I asked, where's that money going? They go, oh, we use it for supplies. It's just a minimal amount. But I'm going, no. And see, those questions are not, and I can tell you, Bernalillo probably receives a huge amount of impact aid funds. And probably in the millions. And to ask where is that special education money going to when they draw on those funds?
Yeah.
Because that's been another big issue of school districts, like Gallup-McKinley County is another one that receives quite a few funds. Central Consolidated Schools does too. And Grant Cibola. And so it's, and I know that Terry's been really asking those questions based on Title VII and some of the impact aid money. I don't know, did you want to say anything? Yes.
Well, let me just,
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot there, obviously,
Yeah.
you know. but
It's a
I
whole
think
lot
from-
more. We just
from
kind of-
quality and just appreciate, I appreciate you sharing that, and I know there's a whole much more behind that, but those are the kinds of issues, you know, those specifics, you know, that we need to be having those conversations with the Office of Special Education Rehabilitative Programs, and because there needs to be statutory, regulatory changes to try to get it to behavior, and this is how the department is thinking, you know, that kind of accountability, a results-driven, you know, approach to you know, getting the outcomes that we're striving for, and that accountability for those funds is something that is resonating right now and on a policy front. And so whether it's looking at the state systemic improvement plans, you know, that get from, you know, compliance and process, do you have this process, do you have those, you know, nice IEPs all outlined, to the implementation of them, you know, that's where the department is heading in terms of that accountability. But it's a sandwich effect, because the funding sides and the way that it's funded, impact aid, for instance, is meant to replace lack of ability to tax the land. And so, for all intents and purposes, it's left up to the discretion of the school boards. And so you get immediately back to these levels of leadership, of which tribes are insulated from right now. And so then we get back to that nexus of the tribal leader, our tribal education departments being a critical focal point in leveraging this kind of expertise and due diligence that needs to happen around affecting these issues at the local level. Because you can only get to that general to general kind of conversations by inserting the tribes in those conversations. So the health and well-being of our tribal education departments that are, you know, extensions of our governments, or governors and the pueblos and council and presidents and other places, directly affects our ability. So, I mean, I kind of use the running joke, especially in context of the federal government and the BIE. It's like the only people that our people hate the most, other than the federal government, is their own tribe. and we have to fix that, you know. I mean, that's, if we trust the federal government more than we trust our own tribe, something's wrong with our communities. So how are we addressing that, you know? And then I think the comment up here affected it the most. That's our future leadership. So it starts there. Yeah.
My name is Terry Trujillo. I'm from the Pueblo of Laguna and Acoma. I have 7 children, 5 adopted, 2 natural. I've worked with a lot of places within our tribe, being from social service and getting the kids, my sister's kids, to I sat on the IPAC board for 2 years for Grant Cebolla County Schools. And there are a lot of issues that our children face that their non-Indian children face. And until we address these issues, the schools, the government can try to make any changes, but it has to be within the community first. Our children deal with domestic violence, high rate of alcohol, drug abuse, and being raised by their grandparents, aunts, uncles, families. And I know firsthand that affects their social, that affects their grades. 5 years ago when I got these kids, they were failing. And the school was trying to tell me because of their home life, the foster care. But I knew that there was something wrong. I knew that they weren't learning. We were bounced place to place, UNM, different places, till we finally started getting the diagnosis of specific learning disability, fetal alcohol syndrome. And you know, we were never prepared for this when it came to social service. It was, we have your sister's 5 kids in our custody. If none of the family can come get them, we're separating them. And we might even have to ship them off the Pueblo. So I got in my ride, I went and I picked them up, I took them home, and I became their mom. After that, I'm the kind of person that likes to be in control. If I don't have control over my house or what's going on, I feel that I'm lost. And I felt that I didn't have that control with these kids and the district and everything. And I felt helpless and I was angry. And I met Renata 5 years ago and I told her my story. And she taught me how to start to advocate for them. And from there, I took off. I went to the tribal library. I did research myself. Later on, I bought my own computer so I could continue to research and teach myself their disabilities and how to be their advocate. No longer are the days of me sitting there crying during IEPs or being frustrated. Now, I kind of run the show.
Really good.
I'm the parent. And until these issues are addressed, you know, I had to do a lot. There was depression, post-traumatic stress with the children, all these issues because of the home they were in. But only until that I addressed these emotional issues of getting them on depression pills, getting them to therapists weekly, and making sure that the school knew that they weren't going to be picked on. Because, you know, I built that wall around them. I brought them in, you know, they were hurt their lives and it showed. And once they knew that I would protect them against the school district, against my family, and against the community that had negative things, that I would protect them. And until they knew these things, their healing started. They are off depression pills. They no longer seek therapy. They have A's and B's in school. And the 2 FAS children, I get a lot. Oh, they don't look FAS and they don't act FAS. But it took a lot of stability in the home. It took a lot of learning this disability and how to take care of them and work with them. And now we have the oldest graduated out of high school this year. And it's sad for parents because we want for our children, but yet it seems like our children are always placed on the bottom. But yet these schools get money for our children. Laguna Acoma, we have more than 90% of our kids are Native American. And Grant Cebolla County Schools gets our funding also from Pruitt Baca, other Navajo children that reside with that school, not just Lagunas and Acomas. So they get a big percentage of money. but we're always told, oh, we don't have enough the budget for tutors. We don't have enough in the classroom, but they can come and bring different coaches in and act like teachers because we need the best basketball team and we need the best football team. But our children with special education, special needs, our Indian children, are reading at 30%, 40% grade efficiency. And to them, that's acceptable. But to me, it's not. I started questioning Impact 8 and the governor's notice, so they started calling me into meetings. Once that happened, Grant Sabola started calling me. Hey, how much of the influence are these tribes having on what you're saying in the impact meetings, what you're doing? How much influence are they having on you? I said, none. I have been alone in this fight by myself. No tribal leaders, nothing. But now they see my kids. They are finally starting to hear my story. I'm being recognized. And they're calling me into their office, to their task force meetings, to say, what do we need to improve here? What's your opinion? And I'm telling them my opinion, how I feel, how the tribe, everybody needs to be involved. But the district thinks the tribe's making me say this to them, say that to them. I sat on there, and their policies and procedures, there was only 4 of the federal guidelines listed. Last year, we got all 8 of the federal guidelines, and we changed it, and we changed the policies and procedures for Impact 8 for Grant Sapola County Schools. And you know, we generate the money, but grants, their people, they have a nice field, they have an art center, they have 2 gyms, they have 22 advanced placement classes. LA has 2. And those are the things that we are facing. We're not asking for much. We're not asking for a pile of gold. All we're asking for is that our Native children get the same education as the non-Native children. And there are many times people like you have came in and said, tell us your stories, tell us your stories. We tell you our stories. We share our emotions. There's a difference between listening to us and hearing us. And today, I hope you're hearing us, and I hope you take this back to where you work with, and that a change is made for our children, because as I see this room, they have grown. Epics has really grown. The parents have grown. And I always think, why is it so hard for my generation or the generations to say you're doing wrong to my child? They deserve this. Your law states that you need to do this for my child, but it's not being done. Why? Why aren't these parents saying nothing? Then I think back, as children we were brought up, you know, especially the ladies sometimes. Emmy, don't say nothing.
Yes.
Emmy, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
And that's how we were raised. But now it's not like that no more. These kids say anything, and it's a double-edged sword for our people.
Yes.
And I really hope this changes for our communities. And we can't wait another 10, 15 years for change to come. We need it now. And we need changes with our kids now. Our kids need to be where their peers are, not 30%, 40%. And you're taking our money, and you don't have money for tutors, but yet you can send your board members to Washington to meetings. That needs to change, and that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you for those strong and emotional words, to use how you expressed them. And I think there's not much to say there. You know, you were spot on everything that you said, from the urgency to the complexity, and I think you outlined for everyone, and I'm sure this community knows you well, on how exactly to affect, you know, those circumstances that as you were talking, could see in the periphery, just the acknowledgement and the shared experience and commitment, as you talked. So I think you speak for many in the room, and thank you for doing that. And just as you've dealt with such slow but meaningful change in your experiences, this is a part of why I'm here in saying, okay, how do we bring that light to this area? How do we look for it here, and the commitment to channel that back, and that's what I'm really proud of our president in that regard, because he's stepped away from having others try to translate that and put it in the hands of people who don't have to spend so much effort on translating it. But we also have to operate in that world as well, and so I carry my notes, the passion, the commitment, the intensity, the emotion, the anger is channeled, when I go back to those office and I sit in front of my computer. Who do I email first? Who do I call first? What is the first email? What is the second email? What is the first meeting, second meeting? And then how do we get back to when EPICS meets again next year? Who do I need to have here? What do I need to have done within that period of time? Set those goals for myself, and then strive to affect them. Strive to bring people, that other decision makers that have much more influence on these specific areas, to come and hear you, understand that. And so in that way, I don't ever misrepresent expectations that I'm going to get to that point where you need me to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years. But that voice is going to be consistent. It's going to be harder to chisel away at because of this engagement with you all and the places where I'll put this information. And when it starts with Matt Schneer and Susan Bembo and Carol with Mountain Plains, let's triple that by next year. So we have much more of those advocates to point to, and you guys have many more as well. And who do I need to bring here from Office of Special Education Programs to hear this? They will own ultimately the technical amendments, the blueprint to statutory revision, and the members that need to be here, the tribal leaders that need to be here. How can I help influence and triangulate them prioritizing this? And so that's how this works. And it feels like you're chasing your tail in many respects. Sometimes you are, but you gotta maintain the chase. And that's what keeps me alive, is knowing that, boy, you got that done there. What's my part? What are those 3 little things, big things, if I can get them, what can I get done there for Department of Ed, for BIE, for some congressional member picking up this issue, if they're inspired by something that I can reflect from their community or another community. So just wanted, I felt like I owed you a response in some way to those passionate words, and so I hope I didn't disrespect it in any way. Yeah.
There's a word that we use with teachers and staff and administrators at our school. It's the word be accountable. That's all we ask for, is someone to be accounted and accountable for our children. That's in big capital letters.
Yeah. And that's a recall from my remarks earlier this morning. That's exactly how I see our office. It's how I conduct myself as a person, but I know it needs to be institutionalized at some point.
And in addition to the accountability, transparency, so we as parents know where those monies are being applied to. What?
I think that's the tune, the sentiment across the country.
Yeah.
How can we be more transparent in this decision making? 9 times out of 10, the communication can at least help us all understand what difficult decisions are at play, and we might even come to the same kind of conclusions if the information is shared. It might not be the arbor, we might not have decided at that, but we might have set a plan to say, okay, this puts our foot in the door to affecting this, and this, so we realize we're a part of that priority and a part of that decision-making structure. Well, I just want to thank everybody again for your sentiments. I know everybody didn't get a chance to share their story or you know, their issue, you have my email. I also want to flag for you, which I didn't get to do during my remarks, was the My Brother's Keeper website. And I didn't get to emphasize either what Ronaldo pointed out, that a lot of our students with disabilities especially are boys and young men. And we really need you telling your story. We need these kinds of organizational stories where this is working, which states are doing good, which school districts are doing good, and you know, whether it's community-based organizations or private, public, nonprofit, you know, submit those stories on the whitehouse.gov/MyBrothersKeeper. So My Brother's Keeper, whitehouse.gov/MyBrothersKeeper.
Whitehouse.gov
Yep. / My Brother's, plural, yeah, My Brother's Keeper. I don't know. I never know which way either. Try both of them.
I'm a little bad at it, so. But, yeah, I just want to say a few things and before we conclude. And I know you guys know me pretty well. Maybe some of you do. But I just want to make this little comment. I also want to say you can get your budgets, you can request for them because your school receives federal funds. They can't hold that. You got to figure out, each special ed department gets their own budget. Their school has a bigger budget. And all those things that are on there, you can request them. Yes, it is hard, but sometimes it's one of those things where maybe we go to Miss What's her name to get, you know, because somehow they change their way when I hit the door, but at least I can say that you need that. But how long have I been trying to get you to come out? Was it about 2 years? 2 years? And I sometimes I always think he was running from me. Oh, here she comes!
I won't say that I wasn't running, but it wasn't from her. It was just
But I you know, when I can tell you right now, for as long as I've been coming to him, and we've grown a relationship here to where we have an understanding between one another. And I do that to a number of Washington people. But I am really glad that he is here, and he honored my request in coming here. Because he hears my stories all the time, but now I'm like, here they are.
Yeah.
They're here. This is who I represent. This is the people I talk about.
Yeah.
But I want you guys to know, even though he leaves office and he goes, you gotta still have the passion to break through those barriers. You can't give up. If somebody would have told me to sit there and wait and wait and wait, I would not be where I am. There's no university that's going to teach you how to advocate and how to learn special education law or how to work within school systems. If there's no education field, it's got to come from you. But it's your desire to get on that website, to learn the law, to learn your school policies, to learn about bullying, and because you know what? You got to be that voice. And when we talk about change is not going to come until you change. But are you ready for that? We can talk all this stuff right now, but you got to be ready when that door opens. Because the moment that door opens, if you sit there and wait, it may never open again. So we, like old-time warriors of long ago, they were disciplined in here. Their bodies were ready at an instant to go where they needed to go because it was life or death. Your children, it's life or death right now. We can't waste time. You got to do what you can do. If it's go to a store, used bookstore, find an IDA. How many of you went to Wright's Law? Anybody go to Wright's Law?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, some of you have those books. He has a website with everything on there. Go to Epic's website. We have all those tools. If you need information to send to you, call us. If you're in another state, we have a 1-800 number. Yeah. I give people my cell number. It's in your little book. My card's there. You can call me at any time. You can email. You can even Facebook me. I have a ton of followers on Facebook. But in this modern age right now, there's no excuses.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm Navajo and I'm Native. I have 3 children. I got 2 in college right now. My son was special education, disability. He's going to graduate from the university. If somebody would have told me no, I'm sorry, no, that's not the issue anymore. You have a Native American person standing right here, parent who's done so much. It's your turn. I'm not doing this alone anymore. I'm not going to be the sole totem. She's the special education Indian expert. I want more people with me. I need you to be with me. We got to quit waiting. We got to quit waiting and sitting there. There's no more excuses. So I'm challenging each and every one of you. Do what you can. Our kids, like we're all crying. We know it. But we can't sit there anymore. The fire that's burning on your butt and your butt's charcoal right now and you're feeling numb and you can't even sense it, scale it off. Feel that fire again. Get up. Our land out there, you know what? This is one thing I realized. We are the highest population with obesity, but you know what? You go home, look what the Creator gave us. He gave us canyons, mountains. We should be the healthiest. We have all that land to run around. But what is it? We're blind. We can't see beyond. Get back to here. Get back to spirit. Get back to this intuition and what this is and start saying, I got to do something. Our children with disabilities are so key to spirit. That's the only way we can communicate with them if we're there too. But that's the only way to fight, because right now it's not a physical war. It's a spiritual war. That's how we're going to break the barriers. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to challenge you. Because you know what? I have all your names now. I know where you live. And this term, I'm not going to let people go. Because this group, you're going to be sitting on districts, you're going to be doing things. And I'm going to start asking those questions. Because I know how to maneuver them. I want to teach you. I want you to be exactly where I am. Some of these individuals, they're my best friends. Look at the fire they have. They're doing it. And that's one thing I'm grateful for. This woman has changed. That couple has changed. And they're doing things. There's no excuse.
Right.
I thank you, and I thank you for being here.